Well, hello everybody, and welcome to part two of our mental health podcast, hosted by our Technic. I am joined by three guests today, whereas we had two last time. I won't steal any of their thunder. Obviously, the two of them were here before, but we have got a very special guest with us as well, who's got some good stuff to share with us. So, first of all, Joe, go ahead and introduce yourself just for those who didn't hear the first one.
Yeah, for anybody that weren't tuning in last time, I'm Joe. As you can tell by my thick Brummie accent, I'm from Birmingham. I'm a sales development manager for a food service company.
Honestly, it's
Hey?
not, you haven't got to try and sell yourself. It's not.
Yeah, I'm a sales development manager for a food service company, but obviously quite heavily involved in the mental health side of things. So that's me.
Perfect. And our other, I hate to call him a special guest because he's not. Lee.
Oh, I'm very special.
If anybody doesn't understand, I'll certainly try and get some subtitles across this one.
Yeah, I'm Lee from Peak Eating, 25 years in the industry after coming out the armed forces.
Good man, perfect. And our third guest today is Brett. Brett, I won't steal your thunder, so introduce yourself, and then we'll have a little bit of a chat about where you are with your, why you're here and what you represent.
Oh, well, thanks for obviously inviting me. There's not really any thunder to steal. My name's Brett. I'm from Birmingham. I set up a clothing brand company called Resilient to help people with mental health, to support people with mental health, and to donate to mental health charities. My chosen charity is the Mental Health Foundation, because it's not a very big one. So everybody talks about Mind, which is also a great charity, but they get enough as it is through celebrities and stuff. So I wanted to pick a smaller one to make sure that they got all the help they needed as well.
Good man. That's a really good thing. And if anybody is watching this on YouTube, you'll see that all of us are branded up with the Become Resilient. Joe is just a horse of the brand. He wears it all day, every day. And I've known Joe for some time. Lee has just invested himself in a nice t-shirt. He's looking very nice. I mean, it must be a slim fit because he's looking quite hench there, haven't you? Been in the gym.
Lovely.
Is Sam, but also just on the back of what Brett's got. So Become Resilient is something that I was introduced to by Joe. Obviously, I've got to know Brett through the time and the push that we're trying to have. So the focus that we put on this first time is trying to raise awareness within mental health within our industry, so plumbing and heating. And obviously our Technic have supported me in my push to do that. And we had a conversation after the previous podcast that we did. And we started talking about how we can support the message as well. I think from a corporate side, but also do our little bit for support to the foundations as well. So we actually now dual brand some of our workwear with Brett's company. We've Become Resilient. So we carry our Technic logo, but we also carry now the Become Resilient logo as well, which is absolutely fantastic. You know, it's support for Brett in the journey that he's in. You know, it allows him to reinvest into his business to grow that message, but also, you know, it's our way of getting some money into the charity as well. So Brett, you know, we as an organisation really appreciate the help that you've given us, you know, in doing that. And I think it allows us to share the message even, you know, on a wider scale really. But just back to Become Resilient, what was the reason that you set it up? You know, what was the driving force behind that?
There's a couple of things really. I've suffered with mental health myself. It's obviously not talked about enough as it is. I did try and end my life at one stage, which is just part and parcel of being how you feel in yourself at a specific time. And then I had a friend who passed away, which is still quite hard.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And you did it in memory of him, didn't you? Know, you did it to support what came from there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah. Which I think, you know, is an absolutely, you know, fantastic gesture from you as a man. And I think it's an ongoing journey now in memory of your friend as well. So, you know, I know it's tough to talk about, mate, and we won't dwell on that, and we can move on. But, you know, I think everybody sitting around this table, around this screen as I see it with you three, your three ugly mushes on there, you know, we certainly, you know, support you in what you're doing. I know the brand and the message is getting bigger and bigger. You know, I see it often, you know, I see obviously Lee's now into it, and I've got family members who are into it. So, you know, from me, and certainly from our Technic, and I'm sure from the guys around here, absolutely fantastic, mate. You're doing a great job, and what you've started there is the start of a fantastic journey. So I appreciate that. We won't dwell on that one, mate, and we'll move on. I think, Lee, you and I have had a chat outside of the podcast, and there's some stuff that we want to sort of talk about when it comes to social media platforms. I know we sort of touched on it before, really, but I know there's some sort of stuff that how that has an impact, I think, on people. So, you know, Lee, do you want to lead that conversation on where?
Yeah, I don't. It's alright. I would like to think, and I don't know if this is because I try and see the good in everybody, but I would like to think that some people don't realise that they're actually doing it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I sort of think in their mindset, hopefully they think it's a bit of banter, a bit of fun. But what you don't know is what's going on, as you've just said there about the screen. You don't know what's going on away from that screen, whether it's, you know, a phone, a tablet, a laptop, whatever. You just don't know what other people are going through. And I don't know. People need to be really wary of that sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, you know, recently I've certainly seen the darker side of Twitter. You know, I'll speak of Twitter platform because that's where I met you and that's where I do a lot of sort of my work stuff from. Not directly at me, not involved in it whatsoever, but obviously with it being an open platform and an open arena, you do see some of the messages. I think that people, whether you say harmless, you know, whether it's harmless fun or whether it's just, you know, their own views, but I think there's not really a lot of consideration put into how the recipient can feel. You know, is that the way to put it? You know, I think it does have an impact on people, you know, because it's their life.
I think the people doing it think it's funny. To be fair, I think in their own world that they think it's funny. But I know 3 or 4 people that have left Twitter in the last 6 months because they're being hounded by, unfortunately, grown men. You know, that should actually be behaving better.
Yeah.
You know, if they're going to use the platform for what it is, you know, be on your best behaviour, so to speak.
Yeah, you know, everyone can be a big brave man when they've got a keyboard in their hand, you know what I mean, or a phone, and it's just, you know.
Do you not think as well, though, that you're sort of touching about people, let's say, throwing abuse around on social media, that sometimes the bigger picture is, if you looked deeper into it, that actually they're doing what they're doing to make themselves feel better about themselves? You know what I mean? I think a lot of the time that these guys, you know, we're talking about men because we're men in the group and stuff having a chat, but I think a lot of the time the insecurities that people are dealing with in their own minds, if they start, then, you know, you go back to being a bully at school. Generally, the bullies at school were the ones that had that, I suppose, lack of self-confidence, weren't they? And the only way that they could get away with it or portray their image of being a hard man was by bullying people.
Yeah. And it's no different, you know. I don't think Twitter is any different from a school playground at the time. In fact, I think there was probably more mature people than what you see on open forums sometimes. And I mean, the positive side of social media. So, Brett, I came across you guys on Instagram, you know, because that's where you do a lot of your sort of sharing. And as a small one-man band, I guess you've used social media to your, you know, to work for you, because you've been able to share your story, your platform via that side of it, haven't you, really, I suppose? And that's a positive way of looking at social media, I guess.
Yeah, well, social media, obviously, for me, is a great form. I do think it's got its downfalls because, like, if you look at what happened to Caroline Flack, I mean, everybody was hounding her, and they didn't even know the story of what had happened. They just seen what the press had put in the paper.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. A bit like the Meghan Markle thing. She was getting hounded for what people were putting in the press, and nobody knows, and no one will ever know what actually went on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I used my platform on social media just because you can try and talk to the amount of people I talk to on there. Like Joe will know, like message celebrities to ask them if they'll help out, and some of them will help you and some of them won't. So it's just massive. There's millions and millions and millions of people on Instagram, and I don't think you do get hate on Instagram because people put in your comments stupid stuff, but you don't get as much hate as what you do on Facebook. Like, I had a Facebook for the brand, but I stopped using it because people were messaging me and sending me emails about stupid things.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what's the point? You're just hurting somebody else, but people don't realise what they're doing. Like, I could say to someone in a comment some nasty things of how I feel towards them. But then somebody else who's struggling can still look at that in a negative way and think, my God, but if they look at them like that, I'm not very confident in myself. So they could also be looking at me like that. So it's just, the whole thing is just crazy for me.
Yeah, it's that indirect impact, I think, isn't it? You know, and yeah, it's like you say, I think it's third people looking in and saying, oh no, that's good on it. It does have an effect now, and I think, Lino, you know this. You know, I came into Twitter to introduce myself into the plumber and the heating world, and you know, and it was great when I first came, and it was, you know, Robert Sexton and whatever else. But what I do see now is more people driving themselves away from that open platform to become into these closed groups, because there's a moderator almost, isn't there? There's someone who can control, you know, and I know you've got your groups away from Twitter and stuff, but you know, it does drive people into these closed groups, which is, you know, harmful for everybody, I think, isn't it? Because we lose the good people that were there.
Yeah, I think Twitter, to be fair, has become the new Facebook.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think the sort of people that you had on Facebook that were ruining things have just jumped onto Twitter now. And what you sort of get is you get that gangland mentality where if you disagree with somebody, then you're wrong. You're not allowed an opinion. You've always more got to follow the pack, you know, and that's the problem. And I think that's why a lot of people are moving away from Twitter and going to things like Instagram and LinkedIn and other things.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a shame because, like I said, 5 years ago when I joined Twitter, it was absolutely fantastic. Everybody got on great. It was brilliant. Now, and we just use it for a little bit of fun with a few select friends, but mainly to promote the business. That includes you, Ed, by the way.
You never give me a reply every time I speak. Is that right?
Got you on mute.
I think one of the bad things about social media is the like effect. Like on Instagram, you can see if someone's liked your photo, and yes, it's good, and it gives you sometimes a boost. Say if you've lost some weight and you post a picture on Instagram and you get 150 likes, you're like, oh my God, fantastic! People like what I've done. But then the next day you post another picture and you get 3. It gets in your head and you think, well, what's going on here? Like, if they fell out with me, they've liked that person's picture, but they've not liked my picture. So what is going on? Yeah. So I think what Instagram need to do is take off the likes. You can see, or you know what I mean? No one else can see. It's better off no one else seeing it at all, isn't it? Yeah. If you can't see or no one else see it doesn't matter how many people like it. You're doing it for yourself, aren't you? You're not doing it for anybody else.
No, and I don't want to sit here bashing social media because I think it's got a place, and I think, you know, we discussed that last time, but you know, I do think it's something that needs to be addressed, because I do think it does have an impact on people's mental health when they see that negativity. But you know, I think it's something that's.
I'll be fair. The best thing I did about 6 months to a year ago is I don't nothing against. Again, I think I said this last time. Nothing against the people. I just unfollowed them. Blocked them, whatever. And I actually deleted all the apps off my phone because I found I was there at 8, 9 o'clock at night. Oh, you know, what's Ed putting on Twitter? Greatest respect. A, it's not that interesting, and B, it's like 8, 9 o'clock at night. So I deleted all the apps, and then if I wanted to use a social media, it was, and Amy took over the Twitter just to promote the business. Yeah. It was done through a laptop during office hours, and then you schedule the tweets to go out as and when.
Yeah. It's just funny, I think, how it's, you know, how it's swayed. But you know, I think it's again, it's probably a discussion. We'll probably do a whole podcast on social media, and you know, I think everyone's got an opinion, and I think that's great, you know, but. Obviously, we're here to talk about mental health, and sort of Lee, you and I have been talking to people that we've been approached to, certainly from the massive success that we had with our previous podcast.
I was blown away by that message. You know the message I'm on about.
There was a message, and I'm not going to name that. I don't think it's the agreement for that, but myself and Lee were both contacted by somebody whose friend was in a bad place, should we say? In awful circumstances, and. You know, just the thought that people are out there that could talk about it were, you know,
should talk about it.
Broken behind you, mate. Go through the cupboards. I'm not going to lie.
Burglar, mate. It's a burglar.
But you know, and it come through to me on a Friday night, and I won't lie. I was sitting on my chair at home, and I'd had a couple of glasses of wine or rum or a bottle of rum or whatever I'd had. This message come through, and I'd never spoken to this guy before in my life. And he sent me this message saying, "Look, I've listened to your podcast. I want you just to share." And he shared this whole, and I sat there and I cried. And I just blubbered, and my wife said, "What's the matter with you?" And I gave it to him. And to see the impact, just a conversation between 3 untrained people had on this guy was amazing. And Lee, I know you were involved in it. And Joe, I think I shared it with you as well. You know,
you did, yeah.
It was humbling, but it just goes to show the depths of people's despair, doesn't it, as well? You know, that they don't think they can talk to people.
That's the thing, I think, isn't it? It's about that, you know, there's like-minded people addressing the same issues that they've got going on in their head. Amazing thing that you're doing at the moment with your walking and stuff you know how I felt the other day when I came out and I was like very much in a deep, dark place.
Yeah.
You know, just being able to talk to you and you going, you know, giving me some friendly advice and whatever else, it's a massive help. And I think, you know, until you sort of break down that barrier of being able to talk to somebody, you don't realise, you know, there's lots that goes on behind the scene, I think, isn't there, when you're feeling that way.
It's that stigma around it, isn't it? You know, and I've had further conversations with this person, and you know, we have open conversation now, and he was indirectly impacted by it because it was his friend that was in, but he also knew that, I think, you know, he touched on this with me the other day I spoke to him on the friendly, that he knew last year he was struggling, and you knew that. He didn't necessarily know it, but you picked up on it and you reached out to him and just said, "Are you okay?" Do you know what I mean? And I know he's very thankful of that, and I think, you know, what you did earlier was an amazing thing, you know, to just pick up on what was wrong with him, you know, or that he wasn't.
Yeah. The thing is, it's a funny one because he couldn't see it.
Yeah.
That's he hadn't identified it yet, whereas I could see it. And the beauty of it for me is, yeah, all right, it doesn't live on my doorstep, obviously, but you know, he needed a hand on a job, and we went out there and helped, and you know, so we had an absolute right laugh, you know, and even his own apprentice was taking the mick out of him, you know, by the second and third day. And I think I left on the third day and he rung me up. He said, "My apprentice won't leave me alone." He says, "We have never had so much fun and banter."
Yeah.
And it, you know, again, and it weren't until a few weeks later that he realised what had actually happened. He realised he was doing too much work. To be fair, he was doing too much work, and he didn't need to be doing that work. And he soon changed it all. And he was working for the wrong people as well.
Yeah. It becomes consuming the work, your mental health. I think when it gets older, I mean, Joe, you know, you touched it there. You know, I'm not gonna repeat here, but I'm doing a charity walk at the moment for mental health, and Joe and Brett have been massive supporters of me. They've come out and walked some of the miles and stuff with me. But Saturday was the first time I've ever actually been out with you, Joe, and seen you in that way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you off that you weren't yourself, and you opened up to me, and you know, you said a few things, and you know, and it was difficult for me, but it was also nice at the same time that you felt you could talk to me about it. And yes, you know, I am an open person, and I do love banter. That's my way of dealing with life. You know, Brett, I know you're the same. You know, you're a jovial character, but sometimes mask for who we are as people as well. But you know, I felt humble, Joe, that you could talk to me. I wasn't happy when I fell in the puddle by the canal, because that
didn't know he'd fallen in a puddle.
That was a bad big. I didn't get any support from Joe when I fell in the puddle.
That was the turning point for me. That really brightened up my day. Then
it killed all your problems. But I mean, you know, and sometimes it just needs, you know, and I said open to Joe. Joe does so much promotion and support for mental health across various platforms that I said, you know, you've got to look after yourself as well. Do you know what I mean? That's the same with work. It's the same with anything that can consume you. Sometimes you've got to take a little step back and take a little bit of time for yourself. And so I said that, you know, openly as a friend, someone trying to support you, just take a little bit of time for yourself, because you are the most important person in your life.
Yeah,
I agree.
All of us are the most important people, you know. And
I did it myself. Like when I was, I'd say, I think it was 2016 when I started to wanting to get fit again, and I was looking at Instagram and seeing everybody had a nice summer body, and I thought, sod it, I'm going to try it. And I was 18 stone at the time, and I got down to 14 stone. But it literally killed me, and that's where my issue started. I was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning before I started work at 6, and I was going for an hour's bike ride or getting on the bike in the house and doing it, and just eating chicken and broccoli for 7 days a week, like without stopping for months on end. And that's how mine started. Just taking like fat burners and drinking loads of coffee, thinking that it was helping me, and it wasn't. It was having the adverse effects, and I didn't realise I had issues until I was about a year down the line, just before I went on holiday. I was sat in the hairdressers, and he went to cut my hair, and I had a panic attack, and I was like, "What is going on?" I'm just sat in a chair having a haircut, and I had a panic attack, and it's just because I'd let that much stuff build up over the time of me trying to diet, and it just hammered my head full of all sorts of stuff, and then I was getting anxious, and I was being horrible to people, and it was horrible. It was honestly horrible. So you are right. You have to look after yourself. You can't just do things and think that they're all right. You have to sleep.
Yeah, and I'll refer back to the old song artist that is George Benson. You know, learning to love yourself was the greatest love of all. You know, and it is so true, because you cannot you cannot be somebody unless you are yourself. Do you know what I mean? You can't support other people. You can't be that. You've got to have that inner security as well. I think, which is so important. That's why I take that little step back and and just start to become you again. I think it's so important. And I don't know if anybody saw that song. Obviously, it was the Roman Kemp program.
Kemp, yeah.
I watched about 2 minutes of it. And they were going out, and there was a 13-year-old who tried to commit suicide. There was a middle-aged guy. I mean, this is in blokes. What is 80% of men suicides come from men? Do you know what I mean? Because
it equates to 3/4 of suicides is men.
Yeah, which is massive. And when we work, and Lee, we touched on it before, what used to be a massively male-dominated industry is now, we are getting some fantastic females in there as well, but it is still predominantly male. And to think that 3/4 of those people are potentially are suffering in that respect, it's huge. And I think that's why we have to open up our eyes and our messages to be able to.
It's scary, is what it is.
It is. It's ridiculously scary, man. And going back to the messages that we had about that person, I think people don't always realise the indirect impact that mental health has on people and on just the loved ones that surround you. If you're living with somebody with mental health.
Yeah, this is what helped me, buying a dog.
We've just been joined by Brett's dog, Reggie. He's a little.
Go on, get down.
Brett hasn't fallen asleep. He's not snoring. It's the dog.
Well, I didn't hear that. What did you say?
Dog growling. It sounds like you're snoring. But it's the indirect impact that it has. I know when I was suffering with it, it had an impact on my relationship at the time. It had an impact on my family. And and the people who were suffering, and I had this conversation with the guy the other week. The guy who was in a place, now he was really guilty because people, he heard people say it's the coward's way out, it's all this kind of stuff. And now he goes, he shouldn't feel that way because, he's got to get the support. And he was at a point in his life that was low enough that he thought he couldn't go on anymore. Do you know what I mean? And but there is an impact, a knock-on effect, I think, that has on everybody else, and whether that be your loved ones, your friends, your family, it's huge, really, isn't it? It's not just a person. There's a wider picture.
I think that's the common denominator that all four of us have got, really, to be fair. And I think, again, going back to what we're saying there, anybody that listens to that first podcast, we always said if it helped one person, that were great. If it helps 5, it's even better.
And it did help one person.
Yeah.
And I know it's helped more than that because I've been contacted, by other people. I've probably got in my inbox in Twitter now, I've probably got 6 or 7 messages of people that have, that are saying, I'm struggling, or I have been, or I've seen it myself. And, sometimes I've sat there on a weekend, because it always happens on a Friday night. I always get messages on a Friday night. Then it's because people have had a drink and they're a bit loose with how they want to talk. But just to be able to feel that people are reaching out to us means that we're never going to change the world. This isn't a revolution, but I think what it is certainly doing is showing people that it's not a bad thing. You're not a weird person. Joe, you and I had a conversation today. You're not a freak. You've got mental health problems. Mm-hmm. You're not a weirdo. Everyone suffers with it, and not everybody suffers with it. But the brain is the most complex computer in the world, isn't it?
Everybody has mental health. Not everybody has mental ill health, and that's the difference.
Yeah,
it's just a chemical imbalance. That's all it is.
Yeah. And I think that's a great way of putting it. And I think it's just trying to share that message, I think, isn't it? That you can reach out, and some people are too tired to do it. I understand that. I was for a period of time, and I'm sure, us sitting around here have all you don't feel like we can talk to people, but, it is something I think that needs to be spoken about. We're all trying to do our little bit to support that, aren't we?
I think the other thing to take into consideration is sometimes, especially with men, I think, is that we have to get to that point, and that this is certainly what turned my thoughts around, is you get down to that lowest point where you are considering these horrible things. Ed, I'm sure you don't mind me saying, I know you've been there. Brett's just obviously touched on him being there. I'm not sure about yourself, Lee, but I definitely have. I've openly spoken about how I felt in the past. And I think to get down to that lowest point where you are considering that, all of a sudden then when you kind of turn it around or turn it on its head and you start talking to people, you actually realise that talking to people helps. And then all of a sudden, then I'm not saying you're never going to go back to that place, but the likelihood of you going back there because you know how much it helps to talk to people, you know, when you've broken down that stigma of being a big hard man, you know, it makes it a lot easier then, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I think sometimes it becomes like a tumble dryer in your head. Everything is just going round and round and round. And if you don't talk about it, it never leaves, does it? Because you constantly on. And even if you just talk to somebody and get it off your chest, and they might try and put a little bit of rationale around it. Is that the best way to put it?
I know the first person that I told when I was having issues, his very first words were, "Well, this is embarrassing, isn't it?" And he walked out the room.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's not good.
And it was something that happened then that actually I thought I was that taken back that I'd tried to talk to somebody I thought was a friend.
Yeah.
That it actually shocked me that much. It made me even worse that I talked to a couple of friends then, and I felt a lot better straight away.
Yeah.
And I've never spoken to that fella since.
Crazy, isn't it? And that's not the right way. And I think, you know, Lee, I don't know what period of time in your life that was or how long ago it was, but
3 years ago, that was.
Is that what it was? See, it should be an open thing there. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
should be able.
Yeah, this is 25 years ago when I came out of the army. This was 3 years ago.
That's what I'm trying to say, and that's why, you know, I didn't want to probe, but it shouldn't be the case. You know, it shouldn't be that someone's trying to go, that's awful. That's it. The first person I told was my mum, and that was the most difficult conversation I've ever had in my life. But I tell you what, when I did have it, it was the best conversation I ever had in my life. Because although I was still struggling and I was still suffering, I knew I wasn't on my own. And I think the biggest problem was that my fear was that I was trying to go through it on my own. And as soon as you start to do it, and we had the conversation the week about the pub, you know, we all go to the pub after work, have a few beers, and you talk to your mates. It's unconscious counselling almost, isn't it? Because you're getting out all the stuff that's on your chest that you've been doing all week, and you go, and it's not washing around. But the minute we don't necessarily have that, do we? Which is, you know, a different thing. And I think if you can talk about things at home, like Lee, I know you have a great relationship. I'm going to call you your lass because that's what you always refer to everyone as your lass. You know, obviously you guys have a great relationship, and you know, others around the table as well. But you know, you've got to be able to talk about it. You can't be stuck in an environment where you can't. Whether that be if you're a single bloke, you don't have a partner at home, or sure you've got close friends or whatever else, or you know, I'm sure that Brett talks to his dog every now and again. Probably gets a better conversation out of Reggie than what he gets out of me and Joe at times.
Well, to be fair, in my experience, that sometimes your friends who you think are your friends are not actually your friends, because you talk to them about it and they just brush it aside as if it's nothing and just go on about something else, and it's a bit of a selfish act, a bit like what Lee said when he tried to talk to someone that just brushed it off. So you need to be careful who you have in your life.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Absolutely. And I think people always have a persona of what somebody looks like who has mental health. I mean, if us four were sitting in a pub together, we're both fairly big guys. Joe, you know, you're not necessarily very well built. But, you know,
Lean machine, mate. Lean machine.
I know all of us are covered in tattoos. Lee, I know you've got tattoos. I've got a lot of tattoos. Brett, yourself, Joe, you know. And people probably wouldn't approach us because they probably think we're the local, you know, thugs from around the corner. They've never seen.
That's your haircut doing that.
We're all wearing the same hat and the same tracksuit. I'm sure we'd look a little bit funny as well.
It'd be like a bad reunion to take that.
Just look like Teletubbies. No direction.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, and that's why I think people look and say, "Oh, them four would never struggle with it." But in reality, mental health has no boundaries, does it? It has no
discrimination, mate. It's got no discrimination. Yeah.
Someone should look like. I think, you know, we all look at people thinking, "I know, so and so's okay," but you never really know what's going on inside there.
It's like you've said before, though, Ed, and I don't know whether you touched on it in the last podcast, that if someone's got a broken arm or a broken leg, you can see it because it's a physical illness. But you know, if someone's got mental health, you can't see it. Me being perfect example, Ed. You said just earlier now that it's the first time really you've seen me and you knew from the off of the walk that I was really down and depressed, because just like most of the others in here now, I'm normally the life and soul of the party. She's like, yeah, just get on with it, and I'll just mask it and just be like, I'm all right. And if I keep being cheery and jokey and banter and all that kind of stuff, gradually I'll talk myself out of being in that frame of mind. Yeah. But actually, it really helped me just to go, when you said, oh, you know, how's things been? And I was like, actually, you know what, mate, I felt really bad. You know, all of a sudden, then I was like, oh, God, yeah, I feel better now. And then we started having a laugh and a joke and a bit more banter, and you fell in a puddle, so happy days. It's just a shame you never went in the canal.
Yeah.
You told me it was the canal, just looked like a puddle.
Luckily, I was quite by where the marina was, where they get the barges in. That, so at least they could have winched me out of the canal. Okay, we're not responsible getting out. But yeah, I think we'll start wrapping up in a minute because we're sort of reaching time. But I think the important message from all of this is let's just try and be a little bit conscious how I know that I've probably indirectly hurt people before and probably upset people, not intentionally, but I think we've all got the ability to hurt somebody or upset them, whether we try to do it or not. I'm not the sort of person intentionally to upset somebody or hurt somebody, but I have done in my life. Of course I have. I'm a human being, the same as the rest of us are. So I think we have a conscious choice, A, to try and be as nice as we can, and B, to just try and be open and be there for people. And Joe,
I think it goes back to Caroline Flack again, though, doesn't it? And I think people were soon to jump on the hashtag bandwagon. When whatever happened to her, and I do believe, and don't obviously quote me on it because it's not a fact, but when people have said, it's a hashtag in a world where you can be anything, be kind. Yeah. And everybody that was trending, and then all that Meghan Markle stuff came out, like Brett touched on earlier, and it was almost like the people that had just been, hashtagging that were all of a sudden like pounding on Meghan Markle, saying, she could have got help if she wanted to. Exactly like Brett said, we only see what the media want us to see. The only people that will ever know what's gone on in that whole royal family saga that's been on is Meghan herself and Harry and the royal family. Nobody else knows what's gone on. Because it's an opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's that whole thing, At least you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. You don't know what people are suffering behind closed doors, do you?
No.
And I think we're all advocates of that for the problems that we've had and where the way that we've struggled. That people when I told people, Joe, me probably better than anybody around this table. But when I first, no one could believe it. No one got no, not it.
No, definitely not, mate. Exactly the same, yeah.
And it was. I was at rock bottom. I sat there with a knife to my wrist trying to end my life. Do you know what I mean? So it just goes to show, I think, that it has no facade.
Look at where we all are now.
I know, yeah. And I'm sure there's a story somewhere, like two Brummies, a Yorkshireman, and someone who's just got stuck. And in fact, that's just before finish call. I need to tell you a story about what happened just prior to this call. So we're recording this on Wednesday, and we're due to start at 3 o'clock. Doing the recording, and I got a phone call saying Peaky Plumber, with a very panicked Lee Brown at the end of the phone going, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god," whatever it was he was saying. Basically, in his excitement, Lee today has brought himself a little present for himself, and I'm not going to spoil it for what it is because you might not want people to know, but he brought himself a little present.
Wearing it, you bought a t-shirt.
Yeah. I'm buying the matching hat after this.
And his new toy has gone into storage somewhere, so he's very excited. He's got it all planned out. Dropped his new toy off at storage, which got him to storage without thinking, how am I going to get home from storage?
You're a git.
All Peaky comes to the side of the road, nowhere to go.
So I hope you're a good plumber, or a better plumber than you are a logistics.
Yeah, you live your last in the logistics, mate, and everybody else can stick to doing that. But yeah, that was a little story. But I am, just as this has been recorded on Wednesday, I have been doing a charity walk, which all three of these guys around this table, Lee has put some fantastic sponsorship money. The two guys sitting here have done some walks, and I've been walking through the month of March. I looked at the 17th. I set myself a target to do 100 miles through the month, and as of the 18th, which will be Thursday, I will pass my 100 miles. And I thank everyone for what I've raised. Just over £2,600 so far for the Mental Health Foundation, which
is brilliant, mate. Well done.
Well done.
Well done. Brilliant.
So, I will continue to walk. By the time this podcast goes out, I will have gone through 100 miles, but I'm not going to stop. I'm still going to keep walking. And it's been tough. There's been blood set into ears, quite literally. There's been, when I was chafing, there was plenty of blood, which was never nice. But, I think, so we went out in bad weather. The three of us, we went out, and the weather was bad. But, mental health doesn't stop. And we weren't going to stop. We weren't going to stop the wind, rain, snow, sleet, chafing, shin splints, falling in puddles. It's not what the message is about. And I thank every single one of support me, especially you three guys around this table now who supported me with my walking, with the fundraising. So for me personally, I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart.
It's a pleasure, mate. You're doing a great thing. Well done.
Keep it up.
So, but we'll wrap it up now. I think we've just got over the time. But listen, guys, again, I really, really, really appreciate you taking the time out to do this. I think it's having a positive impact. It's been really well received, Lee, certainly on the platforms that we've shared it. Joe, I know that you've shared it in various
Definitely, yeah.
to try and do something similar with your industry. Joe, as well, I won't commit to when he said he's going to do it, but he told me he's going to cycle from London to Paris.
I am indeed. September. Trainings are going.
And not me holding to that. So again, for a good charity, so we'll get behind that one as well. We'll start doing some promotion about that. But again, guys, thank you so much for your time. I genuinely appreciate taking the time out to come in and talk to us. So,
No worries,
Can
mate.
we not forget, please, just to give Brett a little shout out about the launch. I'm going to let him say what he's going to say, but just wanted to get it in there at the end.
You can carry on if you want, Joe. No, we've got a new de-stressed range launching on the 21st of March. So if Joe's got the tracksuit on
As
and the
model.
hat, and I have.
That's
So if you want to go and support mental health and you want to help us raise money for charity, then please get over to @become_resilient on Instagram and show your support.
Yeah,
thank you.
And if you head over to the website as well, there's also Brett's stories on the website about why he's doing what he's doing. It's a fantastic journey as well. So
yeah, Brett, the link to the website is in the bio of the Instagram, so you'll be fine.
We're doing as I know, hats off to you, mate. Not that I've got a hat on, but my hat's in there. You put that back on.
Cheers, mate.
And yeah, Lee, and I thank you as well for all the support you give me in social, away from the social media platforms on the chat.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure.
And so we are sending me pictures in a hot tub, whatever the weird things that you do, it gets me through the day, mate. So again, I appreciate it, Joe. Again, we support my walking and stuff. So
definitely, yeah.
Guys, I guess we'll do this again. I don't think we'll let this stop. I think we keep
going. Definitely not.
Chats are good, I think. So we'll keep it
I'll
going.
be on time next time.
Yeah, if you could do, try not to stop with boys on the day. So, but yeah, everyone, thank you very much for
guys.
listening, and yeah, we'll be back soon.
Cheers, mate.
Brilliant. Thanks, everybody.